I want to give you a quick summary about the strangest features in the American Constitution compared to almost all other democratic systems. Again, why do I know this stuff? My PhD research was on electoral systems. I'm not in academia anymore, but because of the monstrous hours I put in this stuff, it's very hard to forget. So the first weird thing is the Senate. It's just goofy. Well, a lot of countries have something equivalent to the Senate. The more general name is called an upper house, but the American one is different. So what's an upper house? If a country's legislature has two chambers, normally they are elected in different ways. Of course, in Britain's case, the House of Lords isn't even elected because it's an old-ass tradition from the 14th century. But in countries where both chambers are elected and have power, they're always elected in different ways because the purpose of having two chambers is to make them disagree with each other and check each other's behavior. And as a result, one chamber is always more representative of the population than the other. The more representative chamber is called the lower house. Normally, each member of the lower house represents roughly the same amount of voters. That's the case for the US House of Representatives. The upper houses, however, don't follow that rule. They're normally smaller, and they normally represent states or provinces or whatever subnational units, but not people directly. That's why California and Wyoming have the same number of senators. So this intentional overrepresentation of some local units is called malapportionment. Okay, remember that word. That by itself is not strange, because a lot of countries have it. What's weird about the US Senate is that it's way more powerful than the lower house. In every other democracy I know, the lower house, the more representative chamber, is either more powerful or at least as powerful as the upper house. If you claim to be a democracy, the lower house in theory should have more power because it's literally more democratic, right? But not in the US. The US Senate has the power to confirm or deny almost every important presidential appointment, hundreds of them. But the House doesn't do that. So which chamber do you think the president will give more concessions? Of course, in parliamentary systems, the entire executive branch is accountable to the lower house. The upper house, if there is one, is always secondary. But even in other presidential systems, there's a more balanced division of duty. In Mexico, for example, some appointments are confirmed by the House, some by the Senate. Why does the US House of Representatives have no confirmation power at all? Well, maybe the founding fathers mentioned the reason somewhere, but at least I haven't found it. Another weird thing that makes US senators exceedingly powerful is their 6-year term length, while it's only 2 years for the House members. There's absolutely no other country where one chamber's term length is 3 times as long as the other chamber. Like, what's going on? Why the founding fathers love the Senate that much is beyond me. As I said earlier, every upper house has malapportionment, which means voters are weighted differently. It's normal, but there's a difference in degrees. For example, Brazil also has equal amount of senators each state, but it's not that bad. The largest Brazilian state is about 9 times as populous as the smallest state. Comparatively, the largest US state, California, is 70 times as populous as the smallest state, Wyoming. So the level of unequal representation is off the chart. Oh, and don't forget the fact that the DC doesn't even have senators or representatives. Crazy. When you combine this level of unequal representation and this much power in the Senate, it simply makes the policy outcomes less democratic. There's no way to sugarcoat it. So here's a summary of why the US Senate is different from other countries' upper houses. First, it's way more powerful than the House. Second, it has way longer term length than houses. And third, It's extremely malapportioned. Okay, that's the Senate. Another wild thing, of course, is the Electoral College. I can guarantee you that it's worse than you think. But I'll take a rest and leave it for next time.